I've actually been to quite a lot of the wonders of the world, but more to the point, I've actually been to 6 out of 7 of the ancient wonders of the world. And the only wonder that I haven't been to of the ancient wonders in the world is the site of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon in Iraq. But this video is going to cover both ancient wonders and modern wonders, as I think people get them mixed up quite a lot. For instance, I've seen a lot of travel videos lately where people visit their 7 wonders of the world, but not really what is considered the 7 modern wonders of the world or the 7 ancient wonders of the world. So what I thought would be a fun thing to do is to actually discuss what I believe are the best sightseeing places to visit when you consider both. So when we combine both the ancient wonders and the modern wonders. And how I'm going to judge that is based on whether they are overrated, whether they are too busy, but actually how truly magnificent they are or were as feats of engineering, regardless of time. So these are what I think are the best 7 places to visit for sightseeing, monuments, and wonders of the world when we consider both ancient and modern wonders. Firstly, before we get right into this list, which I am going to do in order, 7 to 1, don't you think it's kind of funny and ironic when something becomes so popular that it becomes unpopular because people kind of think it's overrated? Well, I'm going to discuss how overrated or not overrated I think some of these sites and places of tourist attractions really are. So, number 7. Now, I am a little bit of a history buff because, as the famous George Orwell said, if we control the past, we control the future. So I think it is really important to know quite a bit about our past, especially now more than ever. So when I was 18, I decided to go on a solo travel trip by myself around the ancient map of Mesopotamia, visiting the majority of all the ancient wonders of the world. Now, within that trip and travel itinerary that I did, I actually visited the ancient city of Troy. Now, whilst it is not considered one of the 7 ancient wonders, I would still consider it an ancient wonder. I mean, we have to consider that time has had its toll, but when you actually visit the ancient city of Troy, it is possible to see where it has literally been burnt to the ground 7 times or more, and each sedimentary layer of the rock is left behind. And it was once one of the largest cities in ancient Greece, modern day Turkey, and they've even built a replica Trojan horse, which I was lucky enough to also go inside. And to me, it's a part of the dawn of civilization. What could be a more interesting place to go visit than that? And as I am talking about it from a sightseeing perspective, I have to say I went in the middle of the season, so sort of June and July, and it was not overly busy. And that is because sometimes it kind of is good to avoid some of the perhaps better known destinations and go a little bit more off the beaten track, because you get to truly explore some of these ancient and modern sites in peace while still taking in some history and the splendour of the destination. So for number 7, what I consider to be one of the wonders of the world for just all the history and stories and culture behind it. I mean, it sparked Homer to write the Iliad. What could be a better place to visit? On my list is the ancient city of Troy. Number 6, we've got a little bit of the modern world coming in. Now, I say modern world, but it has taken a couple of 100 years to actually build it, and it's still not complete. But I, like I said, like to take in how truly remarkable the vision for such a place was. and that is the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I mean, Gaudi's reach and vision for such a beautiful cathedral is just unreal. It's a truly magnificent work of art. I believe it will still be standing in 1,000 years, and people will look back at it just like we're looking back at some of these other monuments, and it really is a wonder to behold. And what is even more beautiful, if you do go visit it is so large, and there is a big park on both sides, that you don't really have to be amongst the hustle and bustle to enjoy it. You might have to if you want to actually go inside, but to just look at the work of art from outside and all the different carvings on the towers and steeples, for instance, it is possible to enjoy that from across the park. And what is even more beautiful is that when the clock strikes, it doesn't just dime like any other, or dong like any other bell. It plays this beautiful tune, unlike any other clock tower that I've ever heard from anywhere else in the world. Now, number 5. We're taking a step back in time to one of the ancient wonders, and that is the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, which back then was considered to be part of ancient Greece, but today it is part of modern day Turkey. And really what I'm talking about is not what is left of the Temple of Artemis, because it is actually just one column that is left standing, but it's the whole town, which was then considered a city because of its size for the ancient world. And, you know, I think it's a really underrated travel destination and wonder, because we have all these streets lined with marble, loads of columns, all the buildings, even one of the first libraries, the Library of Celsus, where people would come from all over the world to visit. And then just off in the distance, there was once the fully standing Temple of Artemis, which was considered one of the largest temples at the time. And it actually got struck by an earthquake and rebuilt by Alexander the Great, but unfortunately then still ended up being destroyed. However, I think it's quite possible, if we have a bit of vision, to kind of look at the scale through models and drawings that are available for us to see of what it would have really looked like. But the site as a whole is just truly, again, a fantastic sight and wonder of the world to behold. And there is even a chapel at Ephesus where St. John the Baptist himself was said to actually preach, which I just think is just so much history in such a small place. It's truly unbelievable. And if you are interested in things like engineering, they even have one of the first sort of toilets or commodes ever made there, and you can actually see the first sort of piping that they had that controlled sanitation, and really perhaps one of the first moments of industrial civilization. Also, Ephesus never feels that busy, and maybe again it's because it's quite a big site that even though it gets quite a lot of tourists, there is so much to explore that it never really feels like there's lots of people all congregating in one area. Now, the next site, we're getting modern again. That is the Statue of Liberty at number 4. Because to me, somebody who is interested in the ancient wonders, one of the ancient wonders being the Colossus of Rhodes, where a huge statue, much like the Statue of Liberty, stood in the harbour, kind of guarding entrance to the harbour in Rhodes. I feel like the Statue of Liberty is a modern day version of that, and if you're somebody who's lucky enough like myself to have visited both places, you can really imagine what something on the scale of the Statue of Liberty would have looked like standing in the harbour at Rhodes. Because the Statue of Liberty is just a modern day version of that, it doesn't make it any less of a feat. I think that sometimes we are enamoured with some old ancient wonders because we're also enamoured by the time that they've managed to stand there. Sometimes the modern versions are equally as impressive, equally considered engineering and design works of art, and like I said before, you never know, it could still be standing there in 3,000 years and people may be looking back at the Statue of Liberty thinking, wow. I mean, I still think wow. I was lucky enough to actually enter past the Statue of Liberty on the QE2, and wow, what a great way to enter and actually look at it before actually going to visit it. How people back 100 years ago emigrating to America would have seen it, and that would have been the first things they saw, you know, the symbol of freedom and liberty. And wow, do we need to be reminded of that these days. And actually, while we're on the subject, if you're interested in seeing some of my ship orientated vlogs, I do have some of those if you want to check out my other videos. For instance, I did a trip to Titanic Belfast, and I have done lots of trips on the Cunard ships, which are part of the modern White Star Line company, the very company that built and sailed the Titanic. But let's move on to number 3. This could be one that some people consider overrated, but I definitely don't. Are we ready for this? It is definitely one of the ancient wonders of the world, and it is the only ancient wonder of the world that is still completely standing: the Pyramids of Giza. Now, everybody that visits the Pyramids of Giza can't help but say about how, if you look the other way, the angle that the camera isn't facing, it's filthy, that Cairo is dirty, that it's messy. But wow, if you're the kind of person that is visiting a monument that is over 3,000 years old and all you can look at is the KFC wrapper on the floor, wow. You know, why are you doing that? I wasn't even looking at other things when I was there. I was so in awe at the scale of these monuments, which would even be considered fantastic buildings now, let alone when they were built back then with no machinery, that it was truly a fantastic thing to behold. And again, I have to say that because the area of the plateau at Giza with the pyramids is so spread out, and there's the 3 pyramids obviously, and the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, I don't personally think it ever feels that busy because there's so much space around it. Now, the one place it does feel busy, and if you're a bit claustrophobic, this is a warning to you all before you go to consider, because I wasn't warned about this and I wish somebody had have warned me. When you go to enter the pyramid, if you are claustrophobic, I would advise considering whether you really want to go inside. The entrance to the pyramid is only about 4 foot by 4 foot, and when you enter, you have to kind of almost walk like this with your head really kind of turned down. And I personally think that there could be a little bit of a health and safety issue because they just let people queue all the way into the pyramid, which to the centre chamber from the outside, it feels like about 100 metres. That could be wrong. All I know is it felt like a very long time to get to the centre of where you can stand up straight again. And as one line of you are going out, because there's only one entrance and one exit, the same way, there's another line of you coming out. Now, obviously, the average person might be about, I don't know, 12 inches, 13 inches wide, maybe wider if you're a male or taller. And then somebody coming down the other side, you're literally brushing past people as you go down each direction. Put it this way, when I went with my mum, she became too claustrophobic halfway down and said she couldn't go down anymore. And she actually felt like she couldn't breathe, not just from hyperventilating, from being a little bit worried, but she actually felt like there was stagnant air and not enough air and oxygen for how many people that were entering. Now, if I remember rightly, we actually went in February, so it probably wasn't even the busiest season, so it could very well be worse at other times of the year. So just a word of warning, if you're claustrophobic, maybe don't go back in, because what was quite horrible for my mum was that she then had to queue to try and get back out when she switched lines, but couldn't get out straight away, even though she was panicking a little bit. Don't let somebody else's experience ruin yours, because I actually just thought it was fantastic. I've always wanted to go. And on that same trip to Cairo, we actually went to the Cairo Archaeological Museum, and seeing all Tutankhamun's possessions in the Cairo Museum was also a wonder all of its own. Really, if I wanted to make this list longer, I would definitely say that it is worth going to Luxor and actually going in Tutankhamun's tomb, which I also did. That is also a wonder all of its own. Imagining how Howard Carter discovered it in 1922 and what he saw when he said, "I see wonderful things." To me, that is a true wonder. All the history involved in that. Anyway, the Pyramids of Giza, it is not overrated. I think it's worth going. You know, some people that perhaps sometimes go to some of these resorts and then have to get on the coach think, oh, I can't be bothered sitting on a coach for 4 hours. But to me, it's definitely worth it to see the only last fully standing ancient wonder of the world. Number 2. It kind of is an ancient wonder, but it didn't quite make the list. But maybe that's because in terms of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, it falls somewhere in between modern wonder and ancient wonder. And for me, it was a complete surprise. And maybe this is what made it truly magnificent to me when I saw it. So we visited Jordan to see the treasury at Petra. Because I'm interested in history, I thought I will go. I'd seen it in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, the Indiana Jones movie. I thought, oh, okay, I'll go see that. Anyway, what made it particularly a great experience was when you arrive, you have to go on quite a long walk down this very long and winding canyon. And a little tip for anybody going, I made the mistake, because before this trip I had never been to a desert before, of thinking, why are they telling us to dress up warm in the desert, which is what we were told. And I just thought, oh, it's the desert. I won't be that cold. And don't get me wrong, I didn't wear shorts and t-shirt, but I wore sort of a linen top, linen trousers. I thought I'd be warm enough. I can quite honestly say it is probably the coldest I'd ever been, because I didn't realise that in a desert environment, the second that you get out of the sunlight, and especially amongst cold, deep, cavernous rocks, it is incredibly cold. And this may have even made the end part of this experience better. So after what felt like an hour-long walk down to the bottom, all of a sudden, as I turned the corner, I saw this shard of light, like a sundial, coming round the corner of the cliff, and in front of me, something that I could just not have prepared myself for, and it truly took my breath away. This huge treasury facade of a building carved out of the rock, shining a kind of glowing red in the afternoon sun. It was just amazing. No photograph or video that you ever see will do it justice. It was just truly brilliant, and perhaps that day will not just go down as one of my favourite destinations that I've ever visited or sightseeing wonders of the world, but actually one of my favourite days of my life, because so many things happened that day that were a truly unbelievable travel experience. For instance, after we'd actually visited the treasury, because there's lots to see down there at Petra, because obviously it's a whole city, there were actually some locals kind of riding their Arabian horses around the area, and I actually thought, by the way, they did look very looked after for anybody that is also thinking about, you know, animals and how they're cared for abroad. Very looked after. And I thought they were actually offering horse rides. And obviously, like I've just said, it was cool down there, so they weren't overheated or anything. I thought they were offering horse rides, and I went over to stroke the horses, and one of the Jordanian locals asked me if I would like to ride his horse. I thought, wow, I could be like a real Indiana Jones and ride up from the bottom. So me, thinking that it was something that they offered to all locals, got on the horse, proceeded to ask if I could sort of go for a little canter up to the top so I can truly live my Indiana Jones dream of how Harrison Ford gallops up to the top from the bottom of the treasury. I soon realised it wasn't quite an hour long for obvious reasons. It just felt like that. I proceeded to sort of have a little canter up to the top. It was beautiful. And then I went to go pay the Jordanian man at the top for, you know, this horse ride. And he said no. He said, no, I'm not doing it. It's not a tourist attraction. He said, I just saw that you really like my horse and I offered you a ride on it. And I was just taken aback. And it perhaps really opened my eyes to the fact that you can't judge a nationality or places or people in the world based on what you hear in the media and the propaganda that is becoming even worse these days, because there's nothing like really being there and really getting to experience the people as a part of the place to truly realise what it's like. And I have to say, the Jordanians were some of the most friendly and lovely and kind people that I have ever had the pleasure of talking to. That being said, Petra is definitely worth the visit, and again, because it is so large, you never ever feel like it is too busy. Just wrap up warmer than you think you need to. Finally, are we ready? This is my personal number one. I might be biased because it's one of my favourite countries as well, but to me, the Greeks are responsible for the cradle of civilization. Greek and Egyptian possibly, but I love Greece. If you even look at ancient Rome, things like the Colosseum, for instance, they even designed all their buildings based on ancient Greek plans. And for instance, when you visit the Parthenon, it's not just the main temple that everybody goes and looks at, but there's a whole town and city there at the Acropolis, and part of the Acropolis is actually an ancient Greek amphitheatre. And to me, the Greeks were very practical, and they would build their Colosseum type amphitheatres into the structure of the hill, hence saving themselves the difficulty and the amenities and the materials of having to build support structures and walls to hold the stadium seating, which is why the Romans kind of took and used that idea. So for me, the Parthenon is just a true feat of engineering, and I've actually been 3 times because I can't get enough of it. I would say that it does get busy at certain times of the year, but it's only ever really busy around the actual temple, and there's plenty of space to sort of walk around the Acropolis. But even then, even if it is busy, it's still worth going. You know, I really admire Greek culture and civilization, and I kind of do have a certain bias towards it. My name, Lydia, is a Greek name. Another interesting little side note is I feel like it's my soul country, even though obviously I wasn't born there. It's, I believe, the country that my spirit came alive. For instance, when my mum was actually pregnant with me, she said the first time she ever felt me move was actually when she was standing at the temple of Athena in Greece, which I just think is weird, considering that now I have this love for Greece as well, almost like I woke up and thought, wow. So the Parthenon to me is just unbelievable. And I have to mention this because one of my favourite films is also Shirley Valentine. And one of the lines in the film, she is asked at school, who is responsible for man's most important invention and what is it? For anybody who doesn't know, it is the wheel, because the wheel, invented by the ancient Greeks, is perhaps responsible, even in the ancient world, even in the modern world, for every bit of machinery and moving equipment that we use. Even all these monuments and places that have built all these huge sightseeing wonders, even before they had modern machinery, will have used pulley systems on a wheel to get all these heavy things in place. So you could say that the Greeks are responsible for all the wonders of the world, ancient or modern. So how could they not be on the list? Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't probably have any. So that's number one for me. It's definitely worth seeing. Side note, as an English person, I am absolutely disgusted that we have the Elgin marbles, and I hope one day I can visit the Elgin marbles in the Athens Museum. If you're somebody like me that is also interested in the ancient wonders, the Temple of Zeus, the site at Olympia, is also a beautiful place to visit, and the museum they have there, with some of the actual marbles from that temple are there as well. The only reason it hasn't made this list is because sadly there is not much of it left standing, although through sort of 3D imagery and models, it's possible to see what it would have once looked like. They had the first Olympics there. Really beautiful up on the mountain, Mount Olympus. Wow. Number one for me is the Parthenon. If you have also visited a lot of the wonders of the world, ancient or modern, let me know what they are in the comments. And also, if you are new to my channel, this is actually quite a new channel. I might do a few of these tip style videos about sightseeing destinations, but also I do actually do travel vlogs as well. So please check out some of my other travel vlogs. They're maybe a bit different. I also travel with my partner sometimes, and we have quite a bit of fun along the way. So you might like to check some of those out. And please bear in mind, it is quite a new channel. I'm still learning about how I want to vlog. Some of them have actually even been made in past tense, but moving forward, we're doing a lot of traveling this upcoming year. We are leaving soon to travel, and we are going to be vlogging a lot more within them rather than sort of kind of filming some of them past tense. Our most recent trip was all around Iceland. You might want to check that out. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for some more tip style videos over the next couple of weeks before we set off on our travel again. And for anybody who has been trying to work out what this neon sign says on my backdrop, it is "The world is yours." It's there, go explore it. To me, it opens our eyes to truth in the world. Bye for now.